Wire podcast. I'm your host, Brian Vert16, and my guest for today, or for tonight, I should say, is comic writer Grant Stoye. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yeah, that's better than most on their first time pronouncing it out loud.
Cool, man. So this is Grant Stoye. He's the writer behind Sidequest. And Grant, welcome to the podcast. How you been?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So we're going to get into the comic. I actually got the chance to read it, and I have to say it's a really awesome comic. I feel like it's a comic that really is a mirror to our lives, and also I feel like it's like a true story of geeks almost. Like it's just like the typical day of a geek.
hmm Yeah, I started out like writing it at a job I didn't like, so I figured that was as good a jumping off point as any. And it just it draw me back to when I played D&D and just to get away from just everyday pressures and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a whole lot of that in the comic too, and I was like, wow, like I can really relate to the character of the name of Derek, which we'll get into in just a sec, and like just the whole idea of escapism, I think, and just how the everyday mundane, just how it just really hits us really hard, and it's just we need that escape because sometimes we're fatigued, we're frustrated, and just the everyday life and all that.
Yeah, and what we try to examine escapism with is it's not always like easy street. It's a two-edged sword because you can get away from everything, that's great, but you still have to go back and get your poop in a group.
That's right. And it's funny, like kind of a little unrelated though, but it kind of reminds me of like, what you just said kind of reminds me of this episode, Little Trash TV. When I was a kid, I used to watch like these court shows
hmm
and like Judge Judy. I think this one was like, I forgot what this one was though, but it was about this guy who just wanted to party and like, get with his girl and all that all the
hmm
time. And his girl was so fatigued, and then like he was just like, I think it was divorce court, I want to say,
Well,
and
it certainly sounds like it might be in
yeah,
that ballpark.
and like basically he was like, he was just talking about like, oh, I want to party, I don't want to, do this and that, but then like the bailiff actually had a, after the proceeding, he and his wife didn't really, divorce. They were still together though, but the bailiff kind of talked him down and said like, look, man, you got to have, priorities, dude. Like you can do those things, but you got to have priorities.
Oh yeah, especially it seems like with the last 2 years, getting your priorities in order is just tantamount to living a non horrible life every day.
Yeah, especially with the pandemic and everything, with how things have
hmm
been going.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine just like having to do this another year because 2 years seems more than enough.
Yeah, man. Got to say, working from home is really, it's a cool benefit.
Oh, absolutely. Can you imagine having to like go back to an office? I feel real bad for people that have to go back in once they've gotten a taste of like how easy and how nice it is to work from home.
Yeah. So, going into side quests, what can you tell me about the comic?
Yeah, it is basically looking at escapism through the lens of sword and sorcery, Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff. And it follows the adventure of Derek, who meets up with his adventuring party, who are all, if this was D&D, their character sheets would be way higher than his, which I thought would be kind of a fun juxtaposition because he may have the spitfire to get through stuff, but he's just not good at things that they are, so he has to kind of follow them around. And as they are enlisted on a couple missions, you see things that start to establish a pattern of what's going on, where this mysterious villainous figure is roaming around the countryside doing horrible things, and they find out that they're tied to it, and they have to figure out a way to stop him from doing more horrible things.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, totally. And the fact that I've read some of I've actually read the comics that you gave me. Thank you for that, by the way. And
Yeah, for sure.
I just see that Derek is I don't know if he has like a little man's I don't know, I forgot what you call it though, but yeah, he just tries to get into a fight with this one dude, and then like, at the end of the day, I mean, spoiler, he gets his ass kicked, and
Oh, dude, yeah. Like he just gets so roughed up to the point where he passes out. He has to grow new teeth and get all of his bruises fixed and all that jazz. And his friends are all like, What's gotten in you, dude?" And I figure that's that's some way to take out some of his frustration.
yeah. And speaking of Sidequest too, I mean, you have a great team of talented individuals like Tobin and Rassicot and Alaire Rassicot, who I had him on the show before, really amazing, and um had him on a previous episode, which was a blast. And can you tell me like what went into creating Sidequest with that amazing team?
I got super, super lucky that both of them were available. I had worked with Alaire going back a long time. Like one of the first full length comics I ever did, I recruited her off of Reddit of all things, and we ended up becoming friends out of that. And she introduced me to her husband, and Tobin is just, he's not just a good letterer, he's a good storyteller, which is
He's
evident in his,
brilliant.
yeah, with his other books, which are phenomenal. Both and all of the Rossico Kickstarters have been funded, and I think that's a testament to
Oh,
how good they are.
I've already had Pilgrim Sturge, and I'm gonna fund. I've already funded Crowd and Anchor, so yeah.
It's they're just phenomenal. So the fact that they wanted to jump on this with me, just I was pretty humbled by that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And also too, just the fact that yeah, they're I didn't know that at the time that Tobin was a letterer though, but like I was really amazed at that. I was like a letterer, wow, and you don't really see the thing about letterers is that they don't get too much credit. I feel, you
Oh
know,
yeah, absolutely. And it's something I sincerely believe that if you want to write comics, you have to try your hand at like all the stages of the process. If you can't draw, you at least have to try, so you get a sense of like how your artists are trying to lay things out and how something might look compared to how you
hmm
describe it. I think trying your hand at lettering is good too if you can find a program to work with you, because then you realize just how incredibly important it is to have seamless lettering just to make the story flow. And I know a lot of people have said that lettering, you don't notice good lettering, but bad lettering can take you right out of a story, and that is 100% true.
yeah, and like and the lettering is just like another thing about that I like about lettering too. Is just that like comics can't be comics without lettering. I mean,
Yeah.
especially like with the sound effects or like, I mean, that's what makes sounds in comics, first of all.
Mhm.
And like also even like not just with sounds, but just like with personality too. Like, for instance, if you have C3PO talking, obviously it's gonna sound a bit robotic. Or if you have like the Joker talking, you notice with like if you read any of like the latest Batman comics, when Joker talks, you can see like the lettering's kind of like out of whack.
Oh yeah, it's the stylization of lettering is just such to the benefit of modern comics. It
It's
just is
evolved.
staggering. I'm in a chat on Twitter with a couple different letters, like Justin Birch and Micah Myers, who are both Ringo nominated this year. Um, and hearing them talk about lettering and the things that they do like and the things that they don't like and how their process goes to just between those two and Tobin, I've learned so much about lettering and how integral it is to a good story. And what's cool about Tobin in SideQuest as well is he knows how to structure like lettering to make a story work better. And I trust his input both from a lettering standpoint and a design standpoint, because he was responsible for the credits page and the title design. His instincts are just really, really good. So I'm always up to his input in any form or fashion.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I wish I learned how to letter shoot, because it's not just like, it's not just like inking stuff. I mean, it's like placing, the dialogue in a certain area, or maybe making it a certain way.
Oh yeah, and because you don't want it to be obtrusive, where it's blocking out the art, and you don't want it to be put in a way that it like your eye following it just doesn't make sense, and the captions are out of order in some way like that. It's more important than a lot of people realize, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to the characters in Crown and I mean in Side Quest, I feel like Derek. as we mentioned before, he's a representation of how most of us want to escape the mundane and everyday of our society. Was it your aim to create a character like Derek to showcase that sentiment?
Absolutely. I figured a mid-30s millennial is probably the most relatable thing for most readers right now. And just having that experience of going to a job that you don't like, but you have to go to, and having to make sure that you're responsible for all the things around you at home, whatever that means, if it's like a pet or kids or a spouse or a partner or whatever that is, like all that stuff, it just weighs on you. And it becomes like you've got this. Have you ever seen Dragon Ball Z when Goku has to wear all those weighted things like wristbands and like
Yeah, for his
that's kind of
training.
yeah, that's what it feels like almost. So you're trying to go through life wearing all these different weighted things. And I felt that whether it's reading comic books, watching movies, playing RPGs, you just need to slough that weight off and just kind of lose yourself for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're gonna see too, I feel with this comic is just that, we might be seeing a lot of like him just like trying to balance his normal life, quote unquote, with his other life. And I did read from issue 3 that there's gonna be a kind of a spoiler alert again for those who haven't read, but it's gonna be kind of a kickoff to that where he's gonna probably have a little chat with the missus and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows like if she's gonna even believe him, because I mean he has like, doesn't he have a ring that like kind of teleports him to the other world?
Yeah, it's the ring is the catalyst for that interworld transportation, and uh, in the fourth issue, we're going to learn like why that ring exists, how it works, and yeah, he's going to have to discuss things with his significant other and get his shit in order. Um, which is oh man, it was tough to write the fourth issue, but I felt good about it because Alaire was upset at me and happy that some of the stuff is going to be drawn. Uh, so whenever you can get any sort of reaction from up here like that, you take it and you're happy. Uh, but yeah, the fourth one's going to be a little painful, and the fifth one's going to be really painful.
Oh wow. Readers beware.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd ever be in the position to feel kind of guilty about beating up your characters, but I feel kind of guilty now after all this time spent with them, and it's like, well, yeah, no one really loves just happy ending after happy ending in a book. You have to have some crap to push the
It's
narrative.
a part of the hero's journey, and
Mm-hmm.
I also feel too that it kind of reminds me of like Walking Dead, where Robert Kirkman actually was feeling really down one time. It was around the time when he had to kill off Andrea,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually wrote about it on one of his letter hacks toward the end of the comic. And he was like, I think he was on a plane ride, and he was like, kind of like, he was kind of at a crossroads, like, should I kill her? Should I not kill her? But sometimes certain characters have to go through certain things in order to keep the story going.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think looking at that, I mean, I don't know if the story would have went the way it did had he not killed off Andrea. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean to sound morbid, but and spoiler alert, and even like killing off Rick Grimes' comic book counterpart. Um, but then we see that with the show too, even where you know the the decision to kill off Carl. I mean,
Yeah.
that was a huge one. And then to have Rick disappear, it was just, people were kind of thinking that it was gonna kind of follow the comic. I mean, even though it hasn't followed the comic 100%, like it
Mm-hmm.
was gonna kind of follow the comic. I mean, at least certain characters, they thought Carl was like bulletproof, but it turned out that wasn't the case because Chandler Riggs, the actor who played Carl, was going out to college. So it's like, how are we gonna, figure that one out? Kill him, So that's what they did. And yeah, so I can totally, I mean, I'm currently writing a story right now in my NaNoWriMo project, and that's one of the things I'm gonna have to struggle with because I love it. I love a good ending, I mean,
Yeah.
I love think good things going for my characters. So, but it's gonna probably come to that one part where, okay, someone's gonna have to like something's gonna have to happen to someone. They're gonna have to have a conflict. It's a part of the process.
Oh yeah, and that's how a story works. Nothing happens, then it's not much of a story. And that's one of the reasons I was super glad to have Stephanie Cook jump on as editor, because
Mm-hmm.
not only is she a great editor, as evidenced by her work in general, but she's a great writer and she has a great instinct for stories. And having her little notes on in the scripts about, this isn't very much. There needs to be something going on, whether it's action or conflict or uh, something has to happen. I need background on this. It's all about just pushing the narrative forward, and it's a hard lesson to learn,
Oh
especially for
yeah.
like prose where you just want to describe something, but then it's just like the scene is set, something's got to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there has to be some kind of like pain or conflict. I mean, not that we like pain. I mean, no one likes pain, but
No, no,
I mean, but there has to be some of that because it's like without that, how's the character going to grow?
Mhm.
And how are his or her supporting characters going to grow? And like, will the
It's
story have much depth to it? That's another thing.
and that's another thing that's been weird about this whole journey. This is the first miniseries I've written that's going to be completed. Because you know how when you just want to get reps in for writing, you just write a bunch of stuff, and sometimes you plan out like, oh, this is gonna be a issue series, and you get maybe two or three in, and then you kind of lose steam. But this is the
Yeah.
first time I get to see one all the way through, and being cognizant of all the different characters and what their motivations are and how they're gonna end up by the end of the story. I don't know, man. It's a lot to keep track of, but it's all gonna pay off in the end, and no one gets out of this without a scrape or two.
Oh no, I mean, it would be like, having Empire Strikes Back without Luke getting his hand cut off and
Right.
yeah, and which was, hey, it sucked, but I mean, at the same time, it's like, it was a lesson that he had to learn, like, and also finding out the truth that Darth Vader was his father, and it's just, it was like Yoda telling, and I think that's the reason why Yoda didn't want him to go to Cloud City because he was like, dude, like, you're not gonna only get your ass kicked, I mean, you're gonna find out the hard truth, and you're gonna even probably be further down but luckily, none of that necessarily happened, but
I think I've always taken it as that's why Empire works so well, is because it ends on a downer with the promise of something better. And I figure that's what we're trying to do with Sidequest. We want each cliffhanger at the end to not exactly be the best, but it's a downer with the promise of something better. We've
I
got
like
that plot,
that.
yeah, and we've got that plot out for the next couple issues. Like issue 4 is gonna, I'm sorry, it's gonna end with a bit of a downer with but it's the promise of something better. And unfortunately, issue 5 is gonna be a downer with the promise of something better.
Yeah, those are. I mean, in my opinion, like stories with a down with the promise of something better always make the best stories, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. And actually, my story kind of starts off a little bit like that though, but then like I feel now that you mention it, like I think like I may need to add a little bit more of a downer, you know.
I can't remember who it was. I feel like it was Robert McKee, who's a really uh, well-known screenwriting teacher. I don't know if it was he that said "kill your darlings," but yo, dude, you got to rough up your darlings a bit.
A bit, yeah. Yeah, so now going still on side quests, like what actually inspired? I mean, I think you touched on this a little earlier though, but what actually inspired you to create side quest?
uh, well, I always wanted to make comics since I was a little kid, and um, for a long period of time, I didn't think that it would be something that I could really sink my teeth into until fall of 2019. I got fired from my job at the bank that
Oh
I,
wow.
yeah, I really didn't like. Um, and, but it was a weird transitional period because I had been contracted to moderate panels at the Grand Rapids Comic Con like a month
Mm-hmm.
after that. So it was several weeks just being super depressed and not knowing what to do with my life or all these notes and stuff like that. And I went there and I ended up talking to a couple pretty well known people in the comics community, and they gave me some really good advice and kind of gave me the belief that maybe I could do this. So I read a lot about story structure and stuff like that, and uh, I don't know. I just started writing the story that I thought I'd want to read, and the story that would mean the most to me. And then I reached out to people that I'd worked with before that I really enjoyed, and thank God they all said yes. And here we are. And we're almost done with this, and we feel like there's big things on the horizon for this story.
That's amazing, man. Like that's an origin story in its own.
We're also pretty stoked that the first issue got funded because midway through the Kickstarter campaign, lockdown quarantine happened during the pandemic. So we're like, I don't know if this is going to go through or not. But thankfully it did.
That's awesome. Yeah. And just like I think the pandemic gave a lot of people an opportunity to like do things that they felt like they should have done a long time ago.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
especially given the fact that, pre-pandemic, everyone was pretty much like, you know, it was like a hamster on a wheel. But,
Mm-hmm.
since the pandemic came along, like it was bad, but it was good in a way where it had people slow down in a sense and kind of like regroup and like reinvent themselves. I mean, I benefited a lot from the pandemic myself, where I started to do more podcasts, explore my creativity more, stuff I never got the opportunity to do before. I mean, I was doing the podcast a little bit before the pandemic, though, but not as much as I am right now, and even doing more writing and all that. You can
Yeah.
definitely catch my work on the Daily Planet, where I write a lot of articles and blogs. So it's been great, for the most part.
It really feels like out of all the really super shitty stuff that happened in the pandemic, one of
Yeah.
the small silver linings is that creativity has kind of been rediscovered. And it feels like we're reaping the benefits of that now because all these artists had made albums and people have been relearning musical instruments. Writers have had more time to write, artists have had more time to just work on their own stuff. And I feel like we are definitely reaping the benefits of that now, especially within comics alone. Because you've seen the amount of Kickstarter comics that are available right now. It's insane. And
Oh
they're all
yeah.
really good.
They're really good, and like actually, it's funny too because even I spoke to a previous creator on the podcast, and he was saying that this is actually a great time for independent comics to be on the rise and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you heard about this, so but especially with the news with Image right now, I think they're like, they're no longer able to do any second printings because of like what's been going on. But I feel like it's another way to get into the digital age of things because it's like these days who needs print?
Mm-hmm. Print, like I'm a
But
huge
then again,
believer in.
I still like my hard copies.
Oh yeah, uh, it's always been a joke with my family that I love to join up with dying industries because my first like super grown up consistent job was being a sports writer for a couple different newspapers, and print journalism was kind of going away, and then
God,
I
I
was
love print journalism.
and then I got a job as a producer on a radio show, and radio shows are kind of bowing out to podcasting and stuff like that. And now I'm in comics, and they're like, well, there's a paper shortage and distributor problems and all this stuff. But I still love print. I love floppy issues of comics. I still love going to the store and buying or supporting Kickstarters that have floppies. And as much as I appreciate
Yeah.
digital and how affordable it can make things, man, I don't know if I could just go straight digital.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm the same way too because like, like you, I've also earlier I've also wrote for, several publications. I've tried my hand at freelance writing. And I'm still doing some writing on the side, but just in terms of like, postings on the Daily Planet website, I actually am a journalist for that whole website. We're actually trying to, get Warner Brothers to make us legitimate. So for you, those of you listening, support us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, like with that, I mean, I think we as creators, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it a dying industry. I mean, it's evolving, I would say.
Yeah, that's a much better terminology. I should use
That's what
that.
my sister always tells me. I mean, when I felt down, it's like, I'm in a dying industry. She's like, no, 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 dude, it's not dying, it's evolving. you know.
Yeah, especially wasn't it? I think it was Greg Pak and a bunch of other people on Twitter have been sharing the comic sales and how sales now for comics, including Kickstarter and independent stuff on Comixology or Gumroad or whatever, comic sales have just exploded.
Oh
Especially
yeah,
now that graphic novels are being bought on a more widespread level.
definitely. And I feel like the Main Street creators are getting more into Kickstarter as well. And yeah, we got like I think Scott Snyder, yes, who created who was doing who did a run on Batman, and he's even
Yep,
making
yep.
his own comic. And you got several others, and it's just yeah, I think yeah, I think honestly, I think we're on a revolution or something. I mean,
Yeah, evolving is such a better term. Because especially with Substack doing its thing and
I
Amazon
heard about
completely and
Substack.
yeah. And Amazon is completely revitalizing, or not revitalizing, but they're changing how Comixology is going to work. And
Yeah.
man, yeah, digital apparently is going to be the new thing.
I mean, as long as we're not on a stranded island or it doesn't end up like Walking Dead, I mean, I guess we're cool. Because like at that point, we probably have to go back to print, like if we can find
Yeah,
the resources.
I'm hoping that rebounds though, because it'd be such a bummer not to be able to, or having to deal with speculators rather, trying to get
Exactly.
first prints of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, what should readers expect from SideQuest?
I think it's going to hit people a lot more closely than they anticipate. Because I know it's like I said earlier, it's millennial angst through the lens of D&D, and there's
Yeah.
it's kind of relatable at this point in time. And gosh, yeah, I just hope they find relatable content. I hope they can connect to one of the several main characters because I tried to make them as diverse as I could, just because I feel like I don't know, as a straight white writer, I feel like I owe a lot to readers and fellow collaborators and stuff, and I want to do justice to everyone that I've tried writing about, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand that too. I mean, the whole idea of like, I try to make my stories diverse too, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, because, I grew up, I mean, as a biracial dude, I'm a black and white dude. I mean, I've
Mm-hmm.
grown up and, kind of felt like a little bit of an outsider sometimes and, felt like I didn't really belong with a certain set of people, like it's
Yeah,
tough. And, so I get the whole idea of like just needing to be everyone to come together, and I see that a lot in side quests and stories like Crown and Anchor too as well. In side quests, there's this one character in particular that I found really interesting, and it was the cat by the name of I think it was, if I pronounce it correctly, Yelwyn.
Yoan, yeah,
Yeah, Yolo was a really interesting character. I mean, it was like, she wasn't she born as a male cat?
yep.
Yeah,
She's
and
she's a trans character, and
yeah,
there I've got some, there's trans people in my life that I care about very much, and I didn't want to have this character be done poorly. So I got some sensitivity readers. I wanted to make sure that I was doing the truest story I could for that character because it meant so much to me, and I was so scared to actually
hmm
release issue 3 because I didn't want to make it seem like I was doing anything half-assed. Uh,
right.
she's arguably my favorite character in this story because I had Ice Ghost do a pinup of her because Ice Ghost art is amazing, and I thought they'd do the best job for a Yolan piece.
Right. And yeah, I mean, and also you have like I mean, and you have like Gretchen the reptilian healer who actually turns into a spoiler alert again, he turns into a were dude.
Mm-hmm.
And Hawk the turtle, Tareen the elf.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a bunch of diversity here, I feel.
I'm hoping so, and they all kind of fit uh, a different role within the party because you can't have the same type of class character in a Dungeons and Dragons party. It just doesn't. It wouldn't work that way. So I tried to give them all different classes and different abilities, and different personality types, and I feel like they're the type of group that you want to be around or you want to play with.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of like, your background and all that, where you come from, I mean, these are your friends, I mean,
Hmm.
they're almost like a second family in a sense. And I think I see that with SideQuest too, and Derek sees it, with his friends. And I feel like, there's some tension between him and Tareen in a sense. And I kind of wonder too, like, are they two like crossing over to another world in a sense, or, you know,
Uh, One of the things I like the most about issue 3 is Alaire captured this one moment between them. Like it's
yeah.
they're when they're awake before the rest of the group, and Alaire just slowly puts her hand on his, and that is a relationship I feel it's very important to the story because it's going to make everything hurt all the more once we we get further
Yikes.
along.
Man, can you imagine a fight between Tareen and Derek's wife, whatever?
Dude, that would not be ideal for anybody.
No. Uh-uh. And speaking of the story also, how many issues do we expect to see with Side Quest?
This arc is 5 issues. I'm hoping that we get 4 and 5 crowdfunded. Um, and if that works out well and is well received, I have a plan for a couple other issues after this arc is over.
Awesome, man. And like, I mean, I think I expect to see, I mean, we readers expect to see like a whole lot of arcs too. I mean, and yeah, because like I think this is like, it sort of reminds me of the Clone Wars, like where everything's just all supposedly innocent, everyone's
Mhm.
learning about everything, but then when the second arc comes, it's like, okay, shit's about to get real.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like the most about comic books are callbacks to things that happen in earlier issues. And I've tried to plant a lot of things that can be drawn upon in 4 and 5, and even if we go beyond that. And there's a lot of stuff I want to do payoffs with. And I'm excited at the possibility of doing more.
It's awesome, man. So, yeah, so we're about to close right now, and I was just wondering, where can we find you on social media?
Socials, I'm primarily on Twitter. It's at Grant and stuff. And I guess if you really want to find my Facebook, you can, but mostly I just post to make my boomer friends upset. Um, and yeah, and I have a website at grantstoye.com. Um, yeah, it's pretty easy to find me. I'm like almost perpetually on Twitter because
Yeah,
I
same
have to break
here.
up the housework somehow. Somehow, excuse me.
Awesome, man. And also, where can we also find your Kickstarter and all that?
Yeah, the SideQuest 4 Kickstarter. Hopefully, we can launch that maybe towards like after Christmas because holiday stuff is
Hmm.
just that's
Oh
not going to
yeah.
be fun to try and launch a Kickstarter in. So either end of December, beginning of January,
Okay,
and
awesome.
yeah, we're pretty pumped. And unfortunately, right now, that's about the Kickstarters are the only way to get the comics.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure in the future they'll come up with some like other way or another logarithm, perhaps, to like make us get the comics more. Because like I heard like I feel like some people are affected because of like the whole. I think it's because of the whole supply issue going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because like I mean, I don't know if some of the stuff comes from here or from China or whatever.
Thankfully, the printer I've been using, Mixum, have been really, really good. They've done a great job with the side quest issues, and we finished up the Yule Anthology. It's a holiday horror anthology, and they did a
Yeah, I
fantastic job printing that.
heard about Yule being a holiday, and because of Harry Potter, makes sense.
Right.
So little side note, like I talked to my sister about it one time. We were talking about like because I'm a Christian, and like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
saw this post one time where shoot, I think there was like one of my friends, really hardcore though. She was like, oh, holiday, Halloween's not a Christian holiday, and all that. And my sister's like, well, what about Yule, dude? And I'm like, Yule, like as in Harry Potter. She's like, yeah. I was like, well, what? Like, she's like, didn't you know Yule means Christmas? I'm like, oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, like Christmas and Halloween, they're all amalgams of several different type of theologies or religions, and it's
Yeah,
kind of cool once you start looking into all the different myths surrounding the different things that Christmas and Halloween kind of absorbed.
yeah. Which reminds me, I got to get to reading those Harry Potter books again.
Well, it's almost the season.
It is almost the season, yeah. Well, Grant. So side quest. When is the fourth issue? When are you planning to take out the fourth issue? Like around? You said like around December, not December, but January, maybe.
Yeah, more likely January, I think, just because holiday season is going to be weird, I think, for everyone this year, especially now that travel's opened up a little bit more.
Right. So I'll be on the lookout for that, man. Like, yeah. So you'll be on the lookout for side quest, number 4. So that around the beginning of the year, and
Mhm.
be sure to fund it. I mean, it's a really awesome story.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and like it makes me actually want to play D&D right now because I never played D&D before. I mean, I played Munchkins, but I never played D&D. You
Oh,
know?
dude, you got to try it. I first played D&D when I was like 35, and that's pretty late in the game for a lot of folks. But
Yeah.
it's fun, dude. If you get the right group of people together, it's just collaborative storytelling.
This one person invited me too, but I never went. So it's like I gotta take him up on that offer.
Yup.
All right, well that's it for the podcast. On the Earth 60 Comics Wire podcast. Grant, thank you for coming, and thank you all for listening. And as I always say, stay ever so awesome. This is Brian of Earth 16, and
What am I supposed to do?
well, just say that just say like you're Brent Grant or something, and you're signing out or something.
And this is Grant Stoye. Goodbye, fellow humans.
All right, take it easy, y'all.